Hey guys, welcome to our YouTube channel. Uh, so if you used Reddit in the past or maybe using now, then you already know about the stories on Reddit, how messed up stories there are on the Reddit. And after scrolling through the Reddit, I came across one of the that messed up stories for myself as well. And after reading that particular story, I was just thinking that this thing is just my imagination. Someone just created out of a fantasy. This story is just imagination of a some person. But if that story is only 10 or 20% true, then that's the story really messed up story. And in this video, I'll narrate that story word to word, and you can decide whether this story is really true or it's just fantasy of one person. So the title of the story which I have read, Statues of Jesus Have Killed My Entire Family. Yeah, I'm not against any religion. This is the title which was given by the writer of this post, and let's start with the story. So I'll read the full story as from the third person point of view. My great grandfather was not a good person by any means. In the 30s, my country was under the iron grip of violent dictatorship, and it's with a great shame that I have to say he was deeply involved in it. My great grandfather was a torturer and murderer working for a state that violated human rights and massacred its own population on a daily basis. Ironically, he was a very religious Catholic man and seemed to think there was no contradiction in going to the mass in the morning and then going on and killing people in the afternoon. In the 40s, when the dictatorship was being toppled, my great grandfather felt the cold breath of justice on his neck. And being a devout Catholic man, he had been telling all his dirty deed to his priest. He then did what he did best. He kidnapped the priest, executed him, and dumped his body in the same wood he had dumped all his other victims. And I think you might have guessed the name of the country, but I'll not mention any country in this video. So I'll just narrate the story as a third person point of view. In a weird way, my great grandfather escaped human justice, but not the justice of God, or if not God, whatever has been slaughtering his descendant since then. No one denounced him, and his name was only publicized to be ruthless state section killer many decades after his death. However, even if most never knew who really he was, apparently some did. He was found violently murdered a few years after the dictatorship was no more. His body had been crucified, his throat cut, his eyes gouged out. Justitia Cassia est memoria eterna est. Justice is blind, memory is eternal. It was written in blood on the wall next to his body. Yes, his body was in the church that the priest he killed used to preach. Next to the altar in the place the statue of Jesus used to be, the statue itself was never found. After my great grandfather demise, whatever ended his life went after my great grandmother. She was living in a small farm in the countryside. I don't know if she was just wanted to move to rural John, or if she was trying to escape from the one who killed my great grandfather. If it was the latter, it didn't work. In 1975, she was found crushed to death under the family tractor, written in blood on the door of her house. The same Latin words that were written near her deceased husband Justitia, Kesica, East, Memoria, Eterna, East. My grandfather was next. In the late 80s, he suddenly came home screaming that Jesus wanted to kill him. My grandmother told him to leave, believing he was drunk. He left, and that was the last time anyone saw him. And a few years later, the curse passed on to my grandmother. My father found her one day after coming back from school. There was a wooden cross with a sharp stake like handle embedded into her chest. She was bleeding but alive. She was taken to the hospital, and whenever someone asked her who did it, she would firmly say, Jesus. It happened again a few days later. She was found in the hospital chapel, nailed to the cross on the wall, replacing the statue of Jesus, her wrist cut and flayed the floor with blood. As she was already in a hospital, they managed to save her, and a police officer would then be on her hospital room all the times. The Jesus figure was never found. After this, my father family would always be on the move. They were always renting different houses, moving around between state and cities. The only Protestant crosses were allowed in my grandma vicinities. She managed to survive for a very long time using these precautions. Long into my father's adulthood, she also had three children before her husband disappeared, and all of them aware of the curse. And this ended up benefiting me a lot in the long run. One day, even with all her precautions, she had to attend a courthouse hearing as a witness, despite the state being secular for some reason. To this day, all courthouses have Catholic crosses that mean a cross with an image of Jesus. 3 days after the hearing, she was found dead with her neck horribly deformed. When they opened it, there was a mass of wood stuck in her throat, a mass that was actually the crumbled figure of Jesus. The cross in the courthouse was, of course, empty. Someone wrote the same old message on the wall under it with a knife. Justita, Casca, East Memoria, Eterna East. I was already born by that point, and I remember going to her funeral. It was either 2006 or 2007, a funeral that none of her children attended. No one knew who the curse would pass to them, and cemeteries, as everyone knows, are full of crosses and statues of Jesus. It turned out the curse passed on to her oldest child, my aunt. She didn't last long. 3 years after the funeral, she was found dead in her apartment. The door had been broken and someone had entered and beaten to her to death. Her face was destroyed. They had used it to confirm it was really her corpse. As per tradition, someone had written on the wall using blood, Justitia, Kesca, East Memoria, Eterna East. Yes, turned out one of her neighbor had a human-sized Jesus statue. A statue that was never seen again after the killing. She had no husband or children. This meant the curse would pass on to the next person of the bloodline. When my father was informed of the murder, he immediately knew he was next. With my great grandmother, it took more than 20 years for the curse to get to her. With my grandfather, it took around 10. With my aunt, it took 3. The time span was getting shorter and shorter every time. If the pattern kept that way, he imagined he had around a year or two at most before an angry Jesus statue was on his doorstep intending to kill him in gruesome manner. After that, it would be my uncle's time, and then my mom's, and finally me. My father had a smart solution. He sold everything out a boat and sailed away. I would only see him once or twice a year after this. During my birthday and his birthday, he briefly anchored his boat and went over there to see him. But as much as my mother loved him, she couldn't handle this type of long distance relationship. They ended up divorcing, and my mother started dating another man, a very wealthy former federal agent. Maybe this would free her from the curse after all. Well, it didn't. I don't know how my father died, but when he stopped showing up, I figured out that either Jesus had caught him or something equally bad happened. Regardless, when my uncle was found crucified in the ceiling of his office with the message Justitia Caeca est memoria aeterna est carved on his chest, we knew two things. One, my father was dead. Two, the curse would soon be passed on either to me or my mother. My mother decided then to live the same way my grandmother did before she passed away. She bought a trailer, a shotgun, pistol, and started teaching me how to shoot. From then on, I would live with her and my stepdad on the road, never spending more than 3 days in the same city, and yet we had close calls. Once while we were sleeping, the windscreen shattered and I saw a very familiar man-sized figure entering the trailer. It moved its limbs, but it didn't blink or move its head. On its hand, it carried a large shard of glass. The Jesus statue headed towards my mother. Ready to stab, I grabbed one of the pistol and shoot at the figure. The arms carrying the shard fell off its body, but it quickly crouched, grabbed the shard again, and once again moved towards my mother. My aim was not very precise, and I did not hit it this time. It managed to stab my mother's hand, cutting off 3 fingers before my stepfather blasted the thing with a shotgun. We then grabbed the still contorting limb and pieces and burned it all. There was also another time that we came even closer to dying. My stepdad was driving the trailer when out of nowhere an out of control truck came at a very high speed behind us, almost crashing into our back. Stepdad quickly skidded, almost outrunning the trailer. For a few inches, we avoided the truck obliterating our vehicle. The truck violently crashed into a car that were in front of us in the road, causing an explosion, and the crash caused a lot of oil on fire to spread around the road. My mother and I grabbed our gun, knowing this could very well be the work of the curse, and indeed it was. From inside the burning truck, a wooden man-sized figure of Jesus came out, burning in the flames and covered in oil, blood, and debris. Stepfather quickly pressed the pedal, and soon we were getting away from that place as fast as possible. What we didn't count is with how fast it was able to run. The trailer was reaching 80 km per hour, and yet the burning statue was almost reaching us. My mother opened the back glass and shot at it with the shotgun. The bullet blasted off its head, but it kept running faster and faster and managed to gap up with us. The thing jumped inside the trailer, breaking the back glass and setting the carpet on fire. My mother shot it again, creating an enormous hole on its torso. Yet the Jesus image kept grabbing her shotgun and bending it with an impossible strength. I grabbed one of the pistol and shot it again, managing to destroy its leg. My stepfather then break the car. The Jesus was thrown away toward the windscreen, shattering it and being thrown on the road. While I used the fire extinguisher, my stepfather made sure to run over it several times until only broken pieces remained. After this incident, my mother decided to leave me on my stepfather's care and said farewell to. We already had cell phone by this point, so I kept on constant contact with her. Every day she called, she would tell me how the attacks were getting intense day by day, and the curse was intensifying, trying new tactics to get her. Disguise, statues, multiple attackers, even one armed with the rifle once. She lasted 4 years. I managed to build a life for myself. I have a stable job, an apartment, and a girlfriend. But 7 days ago, she simply sent a message saying, "I am sorry." Yesterday, when the police knocked on my door, I was already expecting the news. What I didn't expect is how far the curse would move on this time. They were not knocking to tell me my mother had been murdered. They were knocking to tell me my stepfather had been brutally murdered. He had been stabbed more than 100 times, and someone wrote with blood next to the body, Lustita Keika East Memoria Eterna East. There will be no 20, 10, or even 3 years for me. The thing is probably already coming. I broke up with my girlfriend and I pray this will be enough to save her. Maybe there's a way to break the curse. I sincerely doubt I have enough time for that. Even if I'm terrified, I can only hope that the curse ends with me. I don't have the same willpower or strength my grandmother or mother had. I don't think I'll last a single encounter with the statues. After reading these stories, I was shocked. I was just like, I can only assume this is fantasy of someone. And if by chance this story is really true, then that is some horrible thing. I know uh, his great grandfathers had done some gruesome thing, but the person didn't have any mistake from his side, but the curse is passing from generation to generation. I think he will be the last person in his family tree. This story is mind boggling. So many of users on the reddits are commenting that he should be moving to another country who is not worshipping Jesus as the primary god, or maybe the Islamic country, because there are not chances of having Jesus statue as much in the Christian or Catholic countries. But some are even suggesting him to go to the ISIS territory because they prohibited the statue of Jesus everywhere there. So yeah, if this story is containing only 20 to 30% of the reality, then this story is really, I'm praying for the dude, and let's see. You can decide for yourself whether this story is real or just fantasy of some person. So hey guys, this is it from my side, and my mind is filled with the guilt of reading this story. Bye guys.